Welcome, 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 all you precious treasures out there. It's Momma T here, or Amy, as some of you know me. Welcome to my studio. We're going to do a painting together today that is celebrating the resurrection of Jesus, the empty tomb, because he's alive. Oh, it makes me cry every time. I'm so glad you're joining me here in my studio. Let's get started with talking about some of the supplies that we're going to need. We're keeping it very, very basic, so you can even do this on paper with pencil crayon if you want. But if you're painting along with me, we're going to need a canvas, some paint brushes. I'm just using basics, one really big one, a medium one, and a little tiny one if you've got it, or you can use a toothpick for the really tiny detail part. I have red paint, yellow paint, blue paint, and white paint. And that's all. That's all we're using today. A couple extras, obviously you'll need water as well, but an extra, if you want to get really bougie, is a little spray bottle that has a nice fine mist. That can help the paint move slowly over the canvas, and some paper towel is helpful too. Let's get started. We're going to begin with getting our paints onto our palette here. I have palette paper. You can use saran wrap over a dinner plate. You can use a piece of cardboard if you want. Something flat that you have around the house. Sometimes cardboard can kind of degrade a little bit as you're stirring, so it's not the greatest, but saran wrap over a plate works extremely well. So I'm just squirting out some of each. We can even start just with white and yellow. In fact, let's do that. Let's start with some white and yellow, and I'm going to get my biggest brush, and we're going to picture that there's a tic-tac-toe board drawn on our canvas. There's an idea called the rule of thirds, and that means you divide your canvas up into thirds and you put your focal points where the lines intersect. So let's start with white. I know it seems silly to put white on a white canvas, but we need the paint on there, even on that bright shining sun that's going to be the focal point of our piece. Well, one of the focal points. There's two in this piece. The other focal point is the crosses in the distance. But let's get our nice bright sun. We're going to start right here because this is about where the lines would intersect. And I'm going to get really thick. I'm using a lot of paint here. Don't be afraid to really cake it on there. Once I have kind of a circle going for my sun, I'm going to start adding tiny little bits of yellow as well. So I'm going to just grab just a tiny little bit of yellow paint, and I'm going to start going around the edge of that sun with that tiny little bit of yellow. Now don't be afraid if you put it on there and oh my goodness, it's too much yellow. Don't worry about it. The beauty of paint is that you can always go over it later. See how we're just giving a hint of that yellow in there. And if I feel like it's not blended very well, I can go back in closer to the middle again. Don't worry about getting yellow right into the middle there because we want a nice warm shining sun. And I'm going to start pulling the color out a little bit in either direction. I'm not going so much up and down as I am side to side. I'm going to go side to side here and start just pulling some of that out. Grab more paint if you need it, and we're going to go up and down. Now, I'm going to get some more white on my brush, but I'm also going to get a little more yellow now. We want the color to be a bit more saturated, so I'm going to dab in and grab a little bit more. I'm going to start kind of outside over here to see what the color's doing. Okay, so that's a pretty good gradient. We want gradual color changes in this beautiful sky on the day that that tomb was empty. That changes everything, doesn't it? The empty tomb changes everything. I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep getting more and more yellow paint mixed in with that white. I want that color to get more intense. Now, listen, yours might not be looking like mine already, and that is okay. Every one of these paintings is going to be different. In fact, even every one that I have done is going to look a little different. It's going to depend on the paints that you're using. It's going to depend on how you're moving your brush. Don't worry about it. They're all supposed to be different. Just like us as people, God made us all different. Your painting is going to be beautiful. I'm going to show you a couple examples here. This is one. Look at those colors. And this is another one. Look how different that is. You see that? And it just all depends on what color paints you're using and how you move them around. And so each one's going to be very different. And just let it be different. Let it be yours. And it's going to be beautiful. So you can see I'm kind of poking around all over the place. I just feel like when I'm looking at it, if there's a color change that's too quick and not smooth enough, I'm just going in there, poking around again, grabbing white if I need it to be a bit lighter, or grabbing yellow if I need it to be a bit more yellowy. And I'm just spreading that right across, and I'm going all the way to the other side, and I want it darkest on the other side. So you can even take just yellow and start on the other side and work that in towards your bright sunshine there. And that'll give you some really potent, saturated color. Now, once I've got a good band of this kind of white, yellowish going across here, I'm going to start moving up into other colors. We're going to have some fading, glorious sunset. I adore sunsets. Sunrises and sunsets, that's my jam. That's my favorite thing to paint. I just feel like God's glory is magnificent at those times. I don't know anyone who doesn't get kind of reflective when they see a beautiful, beautiful sunrise or sunset. This one little part that's bugging me a little bit. Start behaving there, little part. There. All right, so we've got our white, our yellow. We're going to start moving into a bit of an orange. And so I'm going to grab some red paint. If you're wanting to use my paints exactly, I have this Winsor Newton cadmium yellow. It's a medium hue. Titanium white. I like Winsor Newton paints. And I have then this, I don't even know what kind of paint that is, M. Graham & Company, but it's a nice cadmium red light. And then I have a Liquitex phthalo blue. It's a green shade of phthalo blue. And that's what I'm using today. But I'm going to grab a wee bit of my cad red. And don't hesitate to pause the video. Don't feel like you have to go at my speed. You will likely need to pause a couple times and work things out a little bit as you need to. Don't hesitate. Okay, so same kind of idea. I'm going to grab some white. We want these colors to be very soft and muted, and so I'm going to grab white. I'm going to leave my brush dirty. I'm going to leave my brush with that yellow on there, but I'm going to grab white and a tiny, tiny little bit of red, because this red goes a long way, and I'm going to start mixing them together. Just right on my palette with my brush. And I'm going to grab some yellow and drag some yellow over there. You can use a palette knife or like a butter knife, a kitchen butter knife, to move the paints over if you want. That works really well. Sometimes I use a toothpick too. I'm going to mix those all in there. See, I'm getting a nice kind of peachy orange. And then we're going to throw that right up on the canvas. And I'm going to go higher, and I'm going to just whoop right across there like that. Bam! Look at that beautiful color. I'm just going to keep grabbing it and moving it. And you can even mix right on your canvas. If you want to grab some white paint and smear it on there and pull it around, and then grab some red, smear it on there, and some yellow, smear it on there. And look how it starts mixing right there on the canvas. Isn't that delicious? Looks like a creamsicle. I love creamsicles. And now I'm going to start dragging it down into this nice yellow that we've done. I'm going to need more paint here. Now, it's going to get messy, and that's okay. You're going to have some streaks here and there. Let there be streaks. It's beautiful. Let there be nice messiness in the sky. It's going to just add some interest to your sky. It's going to be lovely. Now, you can see the line here. Not very nice. It's kind of harsh and sudden, and we want to smooth that out a little bit. So here's where I'm going to wet my brush for the first time. I'm going to dip it in the water, and I'm going to get the yellow back on there. My very favorite tub to use for holding my water is an empty mayonnaise jar. Let me tell you, those mayonnaise jars, they have ribs that go along the side, and it's so perfect for cleaning your brush off. Right now I'm using a little mason jar because we just moved and I lost my favorite mayonnaise jar in the move. It's okay, we're close to emptying another one, so all is not lost. There. All right, so I have my brush cleaned off. I'm going to dip back into my yellow and white. I'm going to get some more white, more yellow on my brush, and I'm going to smear those right along the line here. And I'm going to use kind of a light touch, and we're just smearing back and forth, smearing back and forth. Now it's a little bit wet still, and that's good, and I'm going to give it a little spray, and that just helps the paint move more smoothly along the canvas. Look at that. And I'm gonna do some little lines of that orange right in here. And like I said before, don't worry about it. If it's too sudden and you think, I've wrecked it, you haven't wrecked it, don't worry. Once it dries, if you want to go back in and paint over some things, you can. We're just being real loose and chill about it. There. See, like right here, I feel like that's too sudden, that little spot there. But if I drag it down, it's going to be even worse. And so I'm going to cleanly brush a bit. And I'm going to push that back up. We're going to go boop, 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 boop. And just push it back up. This is kind of erasing with your brush, where you kind of dry your brush off a bit. And you just wiggle it and then wipe it off. Boop, see that? Okay, I feel like I'm enjoying what's happening here now. Yeah, that's nice. We're just going to get in there a little bit. You can put some orange underneath as well. I like the look of there being some orange underneath. So I'm going to get some more of that orange going. And I'm going to spread it all down here. Now, a lot of this is going to be covered by our hill, and that's okay. Comes with the territory. It's kind of like when if there's any writers out there, sometimes you have to sacrifice a good line or two for the sake of the story. Even though you want it to work, it just doesn't work. And it's the same kind of thing here. Sometimes you'll have really nice moments in your painting, but they end up getting painted over with other parts. And you know, in the end though, it's kind of fun to know that hidden underneath that paint is a really pretty thing. There. Okay, most of this is going to be covered. Our hill is going to come right along like this and go up. And so you're not even going to see this. That's okay. Don't worry about that part. All right, so we've got our yellow, we've got our orange, we're fading in. We're going to have some pink next, and then it's going to fade into some purple. So we're going to get a little less yellow this time. I'm grabbing mainly just white and red And mixing around, we want a nice pale pink. We don't want to go too harsh with it. And we're going to slap it on there. And just same idea, we're just doing the same kind of thing again here. And you see that when I get darker, I go a bit higher up. And I pull that around a little bit. That's looking nice. And again, remember you can pause it if I'm going too fast. You can pause it or go get a nice drink of something warm. Just remember, if you have a cup with a lid on it, use the cup with the lid on it. Because when you're a painter, sometimes you dip your brush in the wrong cup. I, of course, have never done that, but other painters have. Of course, I've done it. What's worse is when you drink your paint water by accident. Gross. Well, I feel good about this. I'm liking what's happening here. So it's time for some blue. I'm gonna get some blue out. And okay, now this stuff really goes a long way. You wanna be really careful with adding your blue. There's a rule in cooking that you can always put more in, but once it's in there, you can't take it back out again. And it's the same with paint. So you want to take just a tiny little bit of blue. We're going to make a purple here, so we need blue, red, and white. So I'm going to take a big honking scoop of my white. I'm going to need more even. I've already used up all the white that I squeezed out. And I'm going to take some red, and I'm going to take a teeny tiny little bit of blue. Some blues are not as potent as this, but this is a very strong saturating kind of blue. And because it's a green shade of blue, you'll notice that this is kind of a muddy looking purple. It's going to work with, you know, what we have going on here, but your purple might be a little nicer than that. But like I said, we just moved and I still don't have only supplies right. But I think it's going to be nice still. Yeah, you know what? That's working. And the thing is, when you use a limited palette like this, when there's only 3 colors, they're all going to work together in the end. It's not going to clash because you're only using 3 and you're mixing everything together using just those 3, and so it creates harmony in your piece to use a limited palette like this. So I'm going to go right up. Now, in the same way as some of the stuff on the bottom is going to be covered, this is going to be covered as well. Now I want, even among this purple, I'd like there to be a little gradient where it gets a little darker as we go towards the sky. So I'm going to grab a little more blue and I'm going to add that in there, and I'm going to make it just a little bit darker up here. Now you can see it's kind of like, watch what happens when I spray this. We're not going to see this at all, but I would just want to show you what happens when I use my little spray bottle and I try again to swipe that. Look how suddenly the paint starts moving and smearing right across the whole thing. Isn't that nice? That's what's great about spray bottles. Okay, now this is too sudden of a change between these two, so I need to smooth this out a bit. I'm just going to start shuka. My art teacher in college would say shuka shuka, and she might go like this, back and forth, shuka shuka. I loved her. There. I want to drag these colors into each other. We want them talking together. And so I'm going in, dragging some of these down, just back and forth a little bit, dragging some of these up. I'm going to clean my brush if I want to bring some of them up, because if I go in there, I'll dab it with paint that's too dark from way up at the top. So I'll clean my brush off here. And I'll go back up to the top, and I think maybe actually I'll even grab a little of this and bring it in there. Oh, that didn't work. I don't have enough paint. More paint. But just move it around. Don't be afraid to just get things in and amongst each other. And that just adds to the harmony a little bit. I think I want a bit more yellow kind of in here. I want a pretty strong yellow color maybe. Yeah, just a little bit. And just back and forth, until it looks smooth and soft the way you like it. Or maybe you want it really bold and strong. Go for that too. Maybe you want these bands to be like harsh. Go for it. Whatever you feel like is how you want to express yourself in this piece. There. Okay. I feel good about this. I feel like I'm happy with how that's going. Now we have a hill to make. And so this is going to get a little bit crazy because we're going to mix all three colors together, and that's going to give us a nice deep brown. We almost want it black, but I don't like using black paint. I like mixing my own with the colors that I have. And again, it creates that harmony, but it also creates a depth in your painting, because you'll get hints of all the colors in the piece. And I want to show you what I mean here with this one here. Whoa, I'm going to drop my brush. So take a look at this. I don't know if you can see it from where you are, but you can see bits of yellow here. You can see bits of red here. Like, it just creates this nice depth. There's some blue in there. You'll see it when your product is finished. So all that to say, don't mix this too much, okay? We're gonna mix it, quite a bit, but don't worry about it if there's still bits of red here or there or whatever. So we're gonna go about halfway up the painting. So we're gonna go, if you look at from the very bottom to the very top, we're gonna go about to halfway. And that's where our hill is gonna start. Now we're remembering that rule. Once it's on there, you can't take it off. So if you want to start a bit lower, you can, and then push it up later, because you can't go back down again. You can't take it off once it's on there. So we'll start a little bit lower, maybe here. I'm going to wrap it around. I like wrapping right around my canvas because I don't like framing my pieces. I like being able to see the layers of the paint. And we're going to make a hill that goes across a little bit and swoops down right under the sun. Okay, so we're going to start here. We're going to be very brave. It's scary, but we're going to be very brave, and we're just going to go whoop. We're going to go down and around. And that's the line for our hill. And then we're going to start filling it in, just doing our shuka shuka. I'm going to push, I don't know if I'm going to push it up a little bit. Let's see. You can have your hill however you want. You can even have 2 or 3 hills if you want to, like, I don't know, whatever you want to do. We're just going to fill all this in. You want to get it so that you can't see the colors underneath. You don't want, like, see here how there's sort of pores of the canvas kind of showing through. We don't want the yellow showing through. We want nice, thick, confident coverage. Now, I want this hill to be a bit more warm, so I'm going to grab some red, and I'm just layering some red on there. You can do whatever you want on your hill. And bringing it down. Now some of the paint underneath is still wet. If you would like to let your piece dry fully before you go over it, you can do that. I kind of like it because it brings up some more layers into the color, but however you want to do it is great. Yeah, you can see here there's some lightness coming in from the paint that was underneath, getting mixed in with what I'm putting on top, and that's totally fine. Don't freak out if that happens. But again, you can like pause the video, wait till it dries, and then go back in over top. You see how strong that that blue was though, hey? That it made all of this so dark with just a little scoopy. I got some on my paintbrush. I'm worried it's gonna go where I don't intend it to later. It's such a nice, I love phthalo blue. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful rich color. Okay, so I just mixed up some more paint, and we're gonna just keep grabbing all those different colors. I'm just shoving my paintbrush into there, and I'm gonna, let's mix on the canvas a little bit. You can see my paintbrush has all three of those colors. I'm just gonna smear it right across. Look at what that does. Isn't that gorgeous? My goodness, just love it. I love painting. Love, love, love it. We're just gonna smear those on there, working back and forth, drag them up and down, put them all over the place. Now, as we get to the bottom, instead of going in brush strokes that go across, we're gonna start getting swirly with it, okay? We're gonna start moving our brush in a different way. And there's a reason for that, because this is gonna turn into our empty tomb, okay? If you look back at the reference painting, you'll see that the walls of the empty tomb, like the doorway, go all the way around the painting. And so as we start getting to the bottom, we're going to want to see some swirling. Don't be confused. I'm going to walk you through that slowly later, but we're going to just start getting swirly motions instead of back and forth motions, because there's rocks. Like, the walls are made of stone and rock, and so they're a little more jagged than a nice smooth green hill, or whatever color hill it would have been. It was in the Middle East, probably more of a brownish color. All right, so we have some good coverage there. Your canvas is going to be pretty wet now, down here at least, so we can kind of leave that for a bit. And we're going to start going around with our rocks now. We're going to start with a layer of pretty much your darkest dark. So we're going to grab all three of those again, but we're going to mix on our palette this time, because it starts getting a little, the sides are a little thinner along here. I think I want my hill to come out a little farther. I feel like I want, like, the crosses are going to sit right here, and I feel like I want the crosses kind of right there. And as it is, they're going to be down here. So I'm just going to push my hill out a little bit. Move my stick. Oh, I don't have all my stuff. I'm going to rest my arm here so that I can lean my arm against something to steady it. I usually have a stick that I use when I want to kind of be really steady. And I'm not worried about, I don't want the line to be smooth. You don't want it uniform. You want it kind of bumpy. So you see I'm leaving sort of, just leaving it a little random. And push it out even a little more maybe. But again, just getting it so that there's good coverage of paint. Am I blocking you? No. Okay, you can still see. Good. I'm going to come in with some other colors later over top of this because I want there to be a warmth to the hill. I want it to be lit up by the sun, and so that means there's going to be some oranges, some yellows, and a shadow cast by the crosses. So I'm going to leave it like that. All right, I'm going to let that sit and dry a little bit, and we're going to go around and do our empty tomb. Hallelujah, he is risen. So the sides of the tomb, we're going to come up from about here. The sides of the tomb are going to be about there. Now what I'm going to do here is, I think I might actually grab my canvas and hold it on the side, because I'm going to do some motions with my hand that just make it easier if the canvas is on the side. We're going to start doing almost like when you were a kid and you were painting clouds and you would just go bloop, bloop, bloop. That's kind of what we're doing. So I'm going to go start maybe here, and I'm just going to go bloop. Now, it's funny because one of the hardest things in painting is communicating the randomness of nature. The walls of the tomb wouldn't go bloop, 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 right? They would go blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? And so one of the things that can help you get that randomness, where there's not these perfect lines that look too uniform for nature, you hold your paintbrush back nearer the end, and it will just give this, like, you're just not as precise then, right? It just gives this sort of randomness to your piece. And I'm just dragging it down. You can see I'm just twisting the brush. There. And this is going to give us our doorway to the empty tomb. And then once you've got kind of your outside, you can just slap the paint down. And same sort of idea, like we're going to kind of use more rounded motions at times, like over top. You can go do your shuka shuka to get the color just laid right down. And then we're going to kind of go over top. You're not even going to see them on the camera. Like, I'm just going to go over top, but when you're up close to the painting, you can see the lines of the brush stroke, and it's just nice if it, I just want to line that up for you. Yeah, it's just nice if it has that kind of rounded feel to it. You're going to be going through a lot of paint right now at this stage. Don't be scared. It's good. And you can be mixing this however you want. If you're like, you know what, I want this to be much brighter, you can use a brown. You can make a brown just by adding in some white to this. That will make it a lighter brown. I'll show you right here. I don't know if you can see that tonal change, but that's a much sort of browner look. We can throw some of that in too. I'll just dab it here and there. I like that. I like a very warm kind of look. I'm not big on gray and darkness and sad colors. I like it bright and beautiful. I'm gonna get some more spray up here to get that paint flowing smoothly. I even need more, my goodness. I'm making a good dent in our paint stock today. I'm just going to go right across. And we're going to go down the other side. Now it looks very yellow, but when we start moving it around, it's going to just disappear. I'm going to leave some of the yellow in there though, I want it, because there's light coming in, right? So all around the outside of this, all around the edge, we're going to be adding in some orange, yellow, red, just to communicate that the light is shining in. So I'm going to be using a bit less blue on my brush and a bit more kind of red and orange to do some of it, just to get that light coming in. Oh, look how delicious that color is. Yes. Okay, I'll maybe go like that a little bit. And so we're just going all the way around the outside. And I do want to go back in. Once I sort of have the line, I'm going to go back over the line. Now that it's been randomized because I held my brush back and just kind of let it go, I'm going to go back in and just touch up the edges and make sure that the edges are fully covered in paint. That's where having your spray bottle is helpful. Okay, now I'm going to start grabbing mainly just red and yellow for a bit. Now the blue's in there, it's kind of dirty, my paint's dirtied, and that's okay. I'm going to just grab mostly red and yellow, and I'm just going to follow the lines again, going around the outside of the cave. Now some of this is where we did the hill, and it's the same color. It's not a different color, but we're just going to go over it again with the outline being the outline of the tomb, okay? And so we're just differentiating a little bit. The changes in tone are going to be pretty subtle, but they're going to be there, and it's just going to give you the hint that of the shape of the tomb. So for the rest of the painting, we're really using lots of yellow and red. I'm going to squirt out a big blob. And believe it or not, you guys, we're actually almost done this piece. It's nearly finished. If you want it to be. You can go back over this. You can add in Jerusalem down here if you want. In tiny little buildings there. That would be fun. But this is really a beginner's video though, so we're really keeping it simple. So I'm grabbing mostly red and yellow, but the tiniest little bit of blue also. And we're just going in there, and we're doing the bottom edge of this tomb. So if you want, you can do some steps here. And I feel like maybe I want to put in some steps. And you're thinking, this is too bright. Yes, you're right, I agree. We're going to make this a bit darker. But we're going to add in some steps. I'm going to grab some more blue and just smear that on there to darken it up a little bit. We want really good contrast. In high school, my sister's art teacher had this very strong accent, and she would say, "You want excellent contrast in your painting." She loved her voice and listening to her talk with her accent, and lived for that moment. She would say, "Excellent contrast." Yes, we do. So we want our darkest darks and our brightest brights, right? So we've got this beautiful brightness in here, and we're doing some darks down here. Okay, so what we're going to do for some steps, if you want to do it, you don't have to. You can leave it just like this and just have some lighter yellow kind of touching in down here. You can do that. I just feel like I want to communicate a little bit that there's just a vague hint of some steps in here. And so all you're going to do is just go straight across a little bit with some orange. So I grabbed some yellow and some red, and I'm going to not breathe for a second while I do this. And then we're going to do the same. We're just doing a bit of a band going across there, and then one down here too. Just a little bit of a band going across there of light. And it can just kind of fade out. And then we're going to grab a little bit of blue, and we're just going to color in a little bit of blue there. And it's just going to give the hint. It's just going to make your eye say, are those steps? And yes, they're steps. There. And there. You can make them more bold if you want. You can grab a bit of yellow and just touch kind of, oh, that's too much yellow. Grab a hint of yellow and just go right across there and right across there. And then I'm going to grab just your darkest dark, if you've got some of your brown left over, or your blue, and then in the deepest inside, which is going to be right here of your step, just go right across there and drag it up. Now you might not be able to see any of this from where you are, and that's okay. Don't worry about it. All right, we're going to leave that. We're going to go over top of all of this with our, we're going a bit lighter now. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab our orange and our yellow. And we're going to start outlining a bit the edge of these rocks that are outlining the tomb. This entire time I've only been using one brush. I've only been using this great big huge brush. And it's working just great. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you can't do art with unless you're wealthy and buy all the most expensive materials. These are dollar store brushes that I'm using. This is a dollar store canvas. The paints are the only thing that cost money, but this one was done with really inexpensive paint. It was done with beginner paint that you could get at the dollar store. So you can do beautiful stuff with inexpensive things. So I'm going to grab yellow and red, and we're just going to tap around the edges of our stones, just like that. And same kind of idea. You can hold your brush back a little bit just to give yourself some extra wobbliness, and we're just going to go along. And we're defining that line. And so what you're going to do is we're going to say, okay, there's a rock here, and as the line goes down, we're going to follow it. We have this curve here, right, that we did randomly, and we're going to follow it down a little bit, and that's going to give some definition to that rock. And then we're going to drag it down into the rock. Start at the outside and drag it in a little bit, and it's going to give a nice rounded edge to that rock. And we're going to do the same all along. Then we're going to leave our brush dirty. We're going to go and grab some more red and yellow. And we're going to do the same. We're going to just grab the edge and move it in. Oh no, it's too bright. Don't worry about it. We're going to drag it. We're going to drag it down. And you can shape the rocks however you want. You can say, oh, I think a rock goes over here. Great, do that. See how we drag it down? Drag the paint down. And it mutes the color out, so it's not so harsh, not so bright, but it just gives some detail. And I'm not going to touch those steps though, because I like what happened there. I'm going to get my brush dry. I'm going to dry my brush and go in there and tone down some of these spots that are maybe still too bright. And then we can go deeper into the cave with a bit of a darker orange. Just let a little more of the blue get in there and we can outline some more. I'm making these. There were no lines here. I'm just making some lines of rock. You can do the same with grab some yellow. And it makes beautiful rocks in here. In a nice warm tone, because we've got this beautiful warm sunset going. And anytime you feel like there's spots that are too harsh, you just tone them down with that dry brush. And if it's making you crazy and it's not working, paint over it and do it again. There's no rules here about anything having to stay on there that you're not happy with. So we're going to keep doing that. Just keep going around wherever you want it to be. I'm kind of grabbing some brown sometimes and mixing in some of the brown that we made, just so that it's not too harsh. And we're just dabbing around the edges. Oh, look at that. It's so nice. And we're softening the edges out. Maybe there's some rocks here that Jesus had to watch out for as he made his way out. And we're just touching the tops of the rocks that would have been in there. I grabbed a bit of red as well because I want richness of color in there. Your painting is going to look very different depending on what light you have it in. So when you're finished with it, you can try it in all different locations and just see where you like what the light does. We're going to keep doing this all the way around. This is the most time-consuming part of the painting. But we're going to take our time. We don't need to rush it. We can always pause it and come back to it later if we need to. I'm going to do that thing again though where I grab the painting and I tip it to the side. And that will just give me a better angle for going in around the outside. So I'm just grabbing alternately. I'm grabbing yellow, I'm grabbing red, and I'm just poking them in here and then dragging them down so that they get darker as it goes into the cave. We're just going to steadily go all the way around. Highlighting. This is adding highlights is what we're doing. That's what it's called. It's one of the most important steps in painting is adding your highlights. And if you want to get really complicated, you can, where you can follow what the light would do. And on a rock shaped like this, up here, you would have, because the light's there, you'd have this part of the rock brighter with more yellow, and this part of the rock darker. But that's getting a little advanced. We're just keeping it light today. Some of the paint in here is going to be still wet, depending on how thick you put it on. You can just work with it, drag it here and there, see what it does. And don't worry about anything. What does the Bible say? Worry about nothing, but in all things with prayer and thanksgiving, bring your petitions to the Lord. But don't worry about your painting. There's always the option to let it dry and go right over top if you need to. Now, what we're doing is adding highlights. You can decide how bright you want this sun to be shining into your cave. If you want it really bright, you can make this a much lighter brown color, and you can have these highlights be real crazy if you want. You can decide. And all of it will be beautiful. We're kind of getting it done, you guys. We're making progress. Going all the way around here. I'm getting pretty bright with mine. I don't know if you notice here. Look at how bright I'm getting. Yeah, you see these reds at the top? They're fiery. Maybe you're not feeling fiery today. Maybe you're feeling muted and tired. Then your painting can look very different. Your painting can look chill, as my boys would say. Oh my gosh, I just grabbed the tiniest little blue to this fiery orange and it just instantly made it all brown. That's okay. You're doing what you're supposed to do, blue paint. And I'm grateful. So this painting you'll be able to bring out every Easter. You can put it up and then people can comment on it and you can say, oh, that's about the empty tomb. You know what that means? The empty tomb, have you ever heard that phrase before? And boom, you can start to talk about the good news. That wonderful, wonderful good news. There. We're close, guys. We're really close. We're making our way around. And then we just have the one final touch of the crosses and their shadow, and then we're done. Can you believe it? Nice little simple painting. With a great big story. Best story ever. I think I want my stairs to be a little bit brighter. I think I want to give them a little bit more, so I'm just going to add a bit more orange and yellow. Just going to brush it across. Maybe even add a third step down here. And it's just a hint of it. It's just a hint. There. I like that. Okay, it's time, guys. I feel like I got enough light there. And again, you can keep going back in forever if you want, poking in more and more light or muting parts that you think, oh, that's a little bit too much. You can go back in there and say, hey, mellow out there, yellow. You're going a little too crazy there. Or you can say, hey, yellow, go crazy here. However you want to say it or do it, it's going to be lovely. And there. Oh, yes. So warm. Okay, you feeling that, guys? Are you feeling it? It's wonderful. Good things are happening. Okay. Once you feel like all your highlighting is done around the outside, we're going to add a bit of highlight to the hill. And we want to do that because we want to have a shadow being cast by the crosses on the hill. So we're just going to do the very same thing right under the sun and on the top of the hill. And it's just a faint little bit of highlight, just a faint bit. So I'm kind of mixing yellow, red, and brown. And I just keep grabbing more and more yellow and red until I have kind of a dark orange. Kind of like what we had down here. And I'm just going to add some highlight. And some highlight. And you can see I'm kind of caking it on there. It's okay. We're going to drag it back, okay? And it so that it fades. It fades in. All right, I've got kind of a line of the highlight. And then I'm going to wipe my brush off real quick so that I have a dry brush. And I'm going to go back in and we're going to drag it back. And it's going to kind of blend it in a bit better. And what you can see here, it's too much, right? It's a bit too much. It doesn't look realistic. Don't panic. Don't panic. We're going to go back in with some brown. And we're going to tone it down. We're going to mute it. I have to make more brown. Give me a sec. There. You can even go in there with just a lighter brown instead of like highlight if you want. We kind of want for, oops, what did I do there? We want for the highlight to be mostly here and here. I got a little bit, I'm going to show you a trick. I just got a little bit, this is good actually, to be able to show you how to erase. I got a little bit on my yellow here of the brown, and so I'm going to take a fresh brush and just water. And I'm going to paint over that spot while it's still wet. And it just disappeared. You see that? So if that happens, if it happens that you accidentally touch over here with your wet paint, if it's on dry, you can use the wet brush and just erase right away with it, and it will go away. So in the end, we have just a hint of a highlight. I think I'm going to mute this even a bit more. Yeah, a little bit. All right, now it's time to put in our crosses, and this part is tricky because you want them thin, thin, thin. Just tiny little crosses. At least that's what I want. Maybe you want big honking things, and that's fine too. But for scale, just because of how far away the hill is, you want them pretty tiny. So I'm going to take the smallest brush I have. The other thing you could use is a toothpick, or even you could even use a Sharpie if you've got like a black or brown Sharpie, and you could literally go in there with a Sharpie marker and do your crosses with a Sharpie. I have this tiny brush here that I'm going to use. And we're going to get our darkest dark, whatever that is on your palette. And we're going to do 3 crosses, a big one in the middle, and then 2 smaller ones on either side. They can be the same size, they can be different sizes, doesn't matter. But you want like a really, really dark brown. So we're using like lots of blue, lots of red, no white at all. You want just darkest dark of blue, red, and a wee bit of yellow. It's strange to think you'd use yellow in your darkest dark, but it works in getting that rich brown color. So here is where it's nice to have something to rest your arm against, just to steady you. Because again, we're remembering that rule that once it's on there, it can be challenging to take it off. So we want to try and be careful and cautious. I'm going to give 1 little spritz. 2 little spritzes. And I'm going to rest my arm here. Having a little stick that you just rest across and you just hold the stick is ideal. I don't know where my stick is. Maybe I'll use this paintbrush. So I can rest my hand on it right over the painting, and I'm not going to smush my painting with my hand. And we're going to do 1 bigger cross right in the middle. And then 2 smaller crosses on either side. And that just means that they're in the distance. They're farther away. And it just adds adds more depth. Don't worry if your lines aren't perfectly straight. That's a-okay. If you're struggling to get your paint to flow smoothly, you can dip your brush in water and don't dry it off completely. Leave your brush a teeny tiny bit damp. And the paint will be a bit thin, but you can go over. You can go over it a few times. Well, guys, we're done. Oh, the cross is hovering in the air a little bit. I got it. Boop. There we go. Oh, wait, we almost forgot one thing. We need our shadow. So we're going to get a really dark, and we're going to go in and just do a shadow going at a strong angle. And you can have those as bold or as muted as you like. I'm gonna do that trick. The paint's not flowing especially nicely, so I got my brush wet and I dabbed it dry. And I'm just dragging it out. And you're making that line really long before the T of the cross goes on there. You might not even see the T of the cross, like it might not even be visible. But it just makes it pop for some reason, just having those shadows on there. Oh, I shouldn't have said we're done, because you know what we need to do is a bit of cloud. We need some clouds in there. Oh, what a tease that was. Let's add some clouds. Well, honestly, it can be done right now if you'd like. You can be finished with this. I'm going to add some clouds. The clouds are going to be whichever of these colors you want. We're going to tap them in. We're going to use a fresh brush now, okay? Because your other brush is going to be saturated with lots of dark colors. We don't want that right now. We want nice light colors. I think I'm going to have my clouds be kind of orangey. So I'm just going to grab some orange and I'm going to add some white to it. And we're going to use that same idea of holding the brush kind of farther back. And we're just going to do some streakies across the sky. We're going to start maybe up here. And again, the clouds are notoriously hard. Painters, there's entire groups devoted to painters trying to paint clouds and tips and tricks and stuff. And like, don't worry if you struggle with them. You're not alone. Painters everywhere share your pain. We're just going back and forth. Now, you can do floofy clouds if you would like. If you want to do poofy poofs, you can do poofy poofs. You want to get bigger up here with your lines and smaller as you get closer to the sun. You want to get really, really tiny as you fade into the distance, okay? We can get right in there. Now you'll notice that I'm making my clouds kind of all point to the sunshine, because this is the focal point of the painting. This is what really pops. And then all of these other things are what you kind of soak in as you look at the painting. And so the lines here point to two places, like I'm kind of having them directing your eye toward the sun, but also toward the crosses. So this one coming down, this one pointing there. This is just, you don't have to do that. This is just a little extra kind of technique that artists use to bring the eye towards what you want people to be looking at. So it's these two sort of places, and that's what we can do. Well, you guys, that's it. I really hope that you enjoyed painting with me today. It was a delight to have you with me, and I hope that this painting that you've created reminds you of the good news and enables you to share it with the people that you love. Happy Easter, everyone. We'll see you again.